Here we are, everybody. We're going to do the review for issue 92. So this one should be a bit interesting. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Resistance Troop Transport. So we saw this in The Force Awakens. Um, Something I found that was quite interesting, and you can kind of see it here, is that it's based, at least in part, on the B-Wing starfighter. So let's go ahead and get into this. When Leia Organa first began her breakaway military organization in a small hangar on the edge of Hosnian Prime capital city, everyone involved knew they would be up against severe supply problems. The New Republic was committed to its program of military disarmament and had shown scant regard for the threat posed by the First Order. And so was little inclined to meet Leia's repeated requests for resources. The Resistance, as it was later named, was led by the few New Republic leaders who were willing to take an often open stand against the growing threat coming from the known regions. Falling in with them were pilots, soldiers, ground crews, and medical staff from all across the galaxy. Helping supply the fighting forces were a number of volunteer technicians, many from corporations with old ties to the Rebel Alliance, with Slayn and Korpil prominent among them. Bigger boom. Let's look at that. One of the advantages of using B-Wing starfighter parts in the design of the Resistance troop transport was that mounts existed both in the weapons pod and under the cockpit nose for extra weaponry to be added without the need for major modifications. Such additional weapons could include an ion cannon and proton torpedoes, in with the heavy laser able to take advantage of the precision targeting laser already in place, and a pair of auto blasters in the nose of the cockpit, which were particularly useful in clearing landing zones prior to deployment. Shields in surplus. During the Galactic Civil War, it had been the ingenious starship engineers of Slayn and Korpil who had used the blade wing prototype designed by Mon Calamari's shipwright Quarry on Shantipole to create the B-Wing heavy assault starfighter for the Rebel Alliance. In the days of the New Republic, S&K techs would cobble together a ship worthy of Quarry in answer to the Resistance's need for a small but heavily shielded craft to take troops safely into and out of combat. The 16.18 meter wide transport craft resembled an oversized B-Wing starfighter and could carry around 20 troops along with all their gear. Sitting in acceleration chairs held down by a simple harness, the troops were packed into one of the two modular compartments more familiar to travelers on civilian spaceports. It was some comfort to those troops that they were fully encased in a chunk of surplus starship armor, protected by overlapping shields. The transport had shield generators on either end, each borrowed from decommissioned B-Wing starfighters, indeed, there were a number of components taken from the old B-Wings, including the considerable weapons array and the stabilizing gyros. The part of the transport that was most obviously taken from an old B-Wing was the cockpit. The formerly excellent pilot's view was severely compromised. However, when the cockpit was placed into the enclosed armored hull, leaving the cockpit dependent on holo displays and other sensor systems. So basically, they were tucked way back, and which prevented them to really have a good view. They had to use nothing but sensors and displays. On the safe side, assisting the pilot was an astromech stored in an improvised socket space in the passenger compartment. However, the droid's inclusion was necessary not only to aid the pilot's limited vision, but also for another, more alarming reason. While the sublight engines taken from the Montura-class shuttle line, first flown in the Old Republic era, were known for their reliability, one of the few brand new components was certainly not. With hyperdrives in short supply, especially ones for smaller ships like the transport, Resistance engineers took the liberty of making their own. They did this by reverse engineering the SJFSS/Min-12A hyperdrive that had been stolen from the First Order. To guard against any potential mishaps with what was essentially a homemade hyperdrive, Resistance techs installed 2 of them on each transport. But even with this precaution, it was decided that an astromech able to store all the data and jump coordinates should accompany each flight. With so much at stake, you couldn't be too careful. The Resistance to the rescue, trouble on Takodana. With Han Solo, Chewbacca, Finn, Rey, and most important of all, the astromech BB-8 in trouble on Takodana. Poe Dameron and his X-Wing squadron flew to the rescue, driving off the First Order ties to clear the way for the Resistance troop transport to land ground troops to mop up. Traveling on board the transport was General Organa, who had come along in person to rescue her estranged husband with time of the essence, and with Poe's X-Wing squadron flying alongside for protection, the transport forewent the option to be fitted with additional weapons for the trip. Behind the scenes, inspirations. So I think you can see that there. The Resistance troop transport, first seen in The Force Awakens, draws on a number of inspirations, both from the real world and Star Wars universe. The design bears similarities to the Chinook military transport helicopter, albeit turned on its side, while development images revealed in the book of The Art of The Force Awakens shows a range of design cues. Earlier concept work seems to lead from the Tantive 4, while Y-wings were also seen to play a role in the ship's progressing aesthetic. The final design would not be set in stone until very late in the day, in August 2014, during Harrison Ford's 2 weeks off after his injury on set. So there you go. Next, we're going to talk about Scipio, the banking clan world. Rather unfairly, many of the core worlds nowadays might find it surprising to learn that a world in the Alberio system of the Outer Rim territories could ever have been so important as to be able to call senators from Coruscant at a moment's notice, fully expecting them to drop everything and come running. This, though, was the case with Scipio, one of the center worlds of the influential Intergalactic banking clan. In fact, not only was it the official home of the Core 5, the leaders of the IGBC, but it also housed the clan's main vault. This fortress held the records of the banking clan, all their valuable information, including leverage on powerful individuals, and much of their material wealth. Part of the Sith plan to bring down the Republic and the Jedi Order required the financial authority and influence then wielded by the banking clan to be given over to the hands of the Sith. Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord, who would successfully complete the great plan and found the First Galactic Empire, made his move against the Intergalactic banking clan in the final year of the Clone Wars. In an elaborate plot, the IGBC was bankrupted, allied to the Separatists, and consequently invaded by the Republic on the orders of Sidious' public alter ego, Palpatine. Leadership of the banking system was effectively absorbed into the powers of the Supreme Chancellor. The result of the invasion was, along with a lot of property damage, a shift in the focus for the galactic banks from Scipio to Coruscant. The birth of the Empire finalized the move. Scipio was no longer of galactic importance. Visitor numbers, already small, fell away almost entirely. This is a shame, as Scipio is an impossibly beautiful world. Let's go up here and talk about the main vault, and then we'll come down here. The main vault. A politically neutral zone, supposedly immune to galactic or personal conflicts, the main vault was a city-sized mountaintop installation established on Scipio by the Intergalactic banking clan for use as the repository of their considerable wealth. And while in reality, the bulk of the IGBC's business was conducted on nearby Munlist. The striking main vault also served as the institution's official headquarters across its millennia long history. Standing on curved support struts that seemed to have grown like roots from the mountain itself, the installation was set across a multitude of levels with landing platforms of various sizes serving each part. The main vault was accessible by shuttle or spacecraft or by ground car via transit tubes in the support struts, many of which ran out directly to the distant settlements and the estates of wealthy IGBC board members. Although there were many buildings built across multiple levels, the ones that drew the eye on approaching the vault and that dominated even when in the city were the tall, smooth towers with the curved tops looming centrally over everything. The bulk of the main vault itself, any visitors who were deemed important enough to visit the main vault were faced on arrival. Were faced on arrival with an imposing entranceway designed deliberately to intimidate. Though heavily shielded, the main vault was not armed with anti-aircraft batteries or an aerial defense fleet. The buildings housing the wealth of the galaxy was impregnable, and the banks were so crucial to the galaxy's survival that none would risk assaulting them. The immediate military response from every other planet in the galaxy would be utterly crushing. Mountains retreats. From space, Scipio is clearly different from other cold planets. Huge forests can be seen amidst the towering mountains, and though clearly an ice world, there remains a hint of open, unfrozen water. Otherwise, snow and ice dominate, bridged by wide areas of open tundra. The mountains are characterized by sweeping and dramatic arches, each carved from ancient glaciers by the wind. On the slopes of the mountains, massive, ancient trees bowed over with snow are deep frozen and covered in icicles, creating still more archways. During the height of their power, the elite of the Intergalactic banking clan built homes for themselves on the mountain tops. The house of Rush Clovis, the man whose rise to power and fall from grace were key to the Sith plot to absorb the banks, was typical. Only reachable by shuttle, perched on the peak of a steep mountain, the house itself was circular and split across two levels. Both the house and the outstretched landing pad that served it could be shielded against the elements. Inside, the decor of the Clovis retreat was ornate, but with muted and warm colors. Broad fireplaces dominated each room. The views from the tall, wide windows were breathtaking, with guests able to admire Scipio's mountain ranges for miles around, thanks to the fact that Clovis had chosen the highest peak in this remote region on which to build his home. The delivery port sat at the bottom of the house and was used by droid craft delivering supplies to the property and taking away any waste. After Scipio was invaded by the Republic and later absorbed into the Empire, some of the abandoned former homes of the banking elite were taken over by rulers of the new order. From the point of view of off-world pilots or freighter captains, this meant little change in the supply of the luxury goods consumed on the planet. Contracts were not handed out lightly, but were lucrative if won. Since the rise of the New Republic, Scipio has been largely left to its own devices. Its small population of colonists is largely self-sufficient, and with the culture of decadent lifestyles gone with the elite, few off-worlder visitors or traders find themselves drawn to the ice planet. The Core 5. So earlier talked about the Core 5, that they all live there, blah, 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 on this planet. Also known as the Council of Five, the Core Five were the governing body of the Intergalactic Banking Clan in the Old Republic era. Those who had an audience with the Core Five would enter a vast circular chamber in the main vault, at the heart of the neutral zone in the city. above and in front of them, each of their own theater box. The council members offered advice and judgment on the finances of the galaxy. Above each box, holographic projectors loomed over the supplicant at the center of the room, who had to stand, however uncomfortably, throughout the length of the audience. At the summit of the main vault tower, atop its own smaller towers, was the high office of the lead member of the Core Five. Toward the end of the Clone Wars, this office was occupied by Rush Clovis. Before the Sith plot he became caught up in led to the end of the Intergalactic Banking Clan and its absorption into the office of the Chancellor of the Republic. The High Office was destroyed during the fight between Separatist and Republic forces on the world towards the end of Clone Wars. So yeah, that's all in the Clone Wars animated series. It's kind of an interesting little story. There's probably 2 or 3 instances where Clovis was in there, and it's kind of sprinkled about until they get to the final part of it. Let's look at the behind the scenes here. Scipio and the IGBC's main vault complex took their inspiration from Switzerland, one of the banking capitals of the real world. It, too, is a mountainous country and is famous for its clocks, something referenced on screen with the prevalence of clocks, clockwork gears, and motifs around Scipio, including in Rush Clovis's mountain retreat. The planet itself was originally intended to be located in the core worlds, close to Coruscant, but was repositioned in the Outer Rim for the Star Wars Clone Wars, the Clone Wars, closer to the other banking clan worlds such as Moonlist. So, um, in Attack of the Clones, the Mun, Mun, character is very thin. He's very thin, got a very long head. So that's what they look like. And you can kind of see it here. Let's see if I can pull it up. Maybe I will pop in let's try to get this situated. I'll pop in, you can kind of see him there. I'll pop in a picture of one here if I can find it online. Shipyards Part 2. So last time we did Shipyards, it was a couple issues ago, and we talked about the Kuat Drive Yards and the Corellian Engineering Corporation. This time looks like we're going to talk about the Sienar Fleet Systems, and we'll see who else. Emperor Palpatine had no intention of relying solely on one starship manufacturer to fit out his Imperial fleet. He reasoned that were Kuat drive yards to enjoy the monopoly, other shipyards might find alternative contracts to match, which opened up the possibility of a rival fleet being built to fly against his own. Besides, competition was healthy, and so while KDY Engineering could claim that the largest Imperial ship ever built, the Executor, came from their yards, a rival company, Sienar Fleet Systems, was given the contract to produce Tycraft, which would soon become just as symbolic of Imperial might as the Star Destroyer. Sienar Fleet Systems was one of a number of military-oriented shipyards that faced almost total disabandonment after Palpatine's fall, when the New Republic's Military Disarmament Act came down on the mass production of war machines. However, elements of Sienar Fleet Systems sought a way around this and established a new company, Sienar Jameis Fleet Systems, which took on clandestine contracts to build warships for the First Order. Let's talk about Sienar Fleet Systems. Founded several millennia before the fall of the Republic by the wealthy Sienar family, Sienar Fleet Systems, formerly Republic Sienar Systems, earned its reputation across the galaxy as the maker of the innovative twin-ion TIE fighter and all its many variants in an exclusive contract to Emperor Palpatine and the Galactic Empire. The masses of TIE fighters, bombers, and interceptors that served the Empire's navy were almost countless in number, and were built in factories spread far and wide throughout the galaxy. This was a deliberate move to make it almost impossible for an enemy to destroy all of the production facilities at once, ensuring the Empire was able to exert space superiority in just about any space fight it found itself in at any time. Though competitors, Sienar relationship with the galaxy's other big hitter, Kawat Drive Yards, was perhaps not as adversarial as many might have thought. Indeed, it was former Kawat engineers who were behind much of Sienar's success with its TIE ships, while the Sienar designed solar ionization reactor was used to power Kawat's Imperial-class Star Destroyer. Sienar Fleet Systems in Lothal. As Palpatine's empire expanded, he sought to bring the population of each and every world under his control, and paid especially close attention to those planets far away from his seat of power on Coruscant. Outlying worlds such as the Outer Rim planet of Lothal were given imperial academies so that their young population might be indoctrinated early, and, in case that failed and any resistance was felt, military bases to assert control. As part of Palpatine's model of having his manufacturing facilities scattered across the galaxy to avoid their being vulnerable to a single attack, Lothal was also a location of a large Sienar Fleet Systems factory, which churned out countless iconic TIE craft during the Imperial era. Sienar Jameis Shipyards, Unknown Regions. With the signing of the Galactic Concordance during the Empire's final defeat at the Battle of Jakku, the galaxy and the New Republic that assumed control of it might have thought the days of costly galaxy-spanning conflict had come to an end. The New Republic moved to bring about a new, less militaristic era, with its Military Disarmament Act calling for the immediate disbandment of the Imperial fleet, as well as a dramatic reduction in the number of standing vessels to be held by its own army and navy. However, not all in the post-Imperial galaxy shared the New Republic's pacifistic vision, and from the ashes of the Empire rose the First Order, an avowedly militaristic faction led in part by former Imperial servicemen that sought to reinstate the rule of Empire across the galaxy. From its secret bases in the unknown regions, where it grew steadily out of the sight of the New Republic, the First Order commissioned a fleet of warships, many of which were produced in the shipyards of the new Sienar Jameis Fleet Systems. Much like the order it serviced, Sienar Jameis was made up of the militaristic elements of a former Imperial mainstay, Sienar Fleet Systems, which had followed the order into the unknown regions to continue building war machines. It was there that Kylo Ren, the most gifted apprentice of the First Order Supreme Leader Snoke, oversaw Sienar Jameis's construction of a fleet of new and improved TIE craft, including the standard TIE FO for First Order model and the super-powered Special Forces variant, the TIE SF for Special Forces. So that's a normal, you can see this here. This is a normal TIE FO. Try to get it with, and then the Special Forces one has the red ball, or the red paint on the ball. Without the limitless resources of the Empire, Palpatine's model of mass-producing TIEs to overpower enemies almost by sheer weight of numbers had to be rethought, with Sienar Jameis working hard to draw up designs for longer-lasting, less expendable craft. To end, its new TIEs were fitted with improved solar cells and higher capacity converters, features that were formerly reserved for the Sienar Fleet Systems exclusive TIE Advanced projects, while the TIE SF model was equipped with a miniaturized hyperdrive to enable it to fly long-distance missions alone. There you go. That is everything for issue 92. And in this issue, we got some framework, and we got this ladder corridor, and then we got some external pieces, and then obviously we got the docking clamp there. Next time we're going to get some more external pieces and some, looks like some more plant-on details. So we'll see how that goes. I'm anticipating trying to ramp up some of the detail painting on the underside, because I'm not going to really be able to flip it over and do it because I have no way to support it from the top, and I'd rather it not get damaged. I suppose I could put it in those plastic things, but we'll see how that goes. If I can get stuff painted on the bottom now, that'll save me later. So with that, I want to say thank you all for watching. Try to level that up. And may the force be with you always.